I'm going to give my bit on this recent announcement from Adobe about pretty much ending development for Flash within mobile browsers. That doesn't mean that Flash as a product is ending. It's still going to be going on the desktop, and they're also going to be working with the other product suites to bring Flash-based applications to mobile platforms. Now, there's plenty of pundits weighing in, and everybody's got their opinions, and see, Steve Jobs was right, blah, 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 blah. I will first and foremost say that my old video still stands about Steve Jobs' letter. I still think he was very, very hypocritical, and I quite frankly don't think he was right. Android, if anything, and other platforms have proven that Flash can run. I have personally tried it on my HTC Evo. I have other friends that have used, that still have their Android devices, my co-workers that are running Flash game websites, not just video and touch interfaces, and they work quote-unquote normally. Hey, there might be pundits out there that say, oh, it's sluggish on my device and this and that. I have sluggish things that have happened on my iPhones when I've owned the 3G and 3GS. My wife's iPhone has sluggishness in here and there when she had asked me about a certain app. Hello, what are we discussing here? The other thing is that, oh, Flash is crashing my Mac. Now, I might be the only one on this island out somewhere in the ocean, but I don't have Flash crashing on my Mac or any browser where my browser is crashing. Now, I use Firefox a lot. I don't use Safari a lot. I don't know if that may be some sort of thing, but my fans don't heat up and spin up and all this other stuff. And if it does for you, well, I'm sorry. I guess you're just missing out. I find it, though, a contradiction for Mac users to say, oh, it's crashing my Mac and this sucks and look how my fans are going, and yet they say, well, I don't go to Flash sites at all. I don't use Flash at all, and so iOS is fine for me. So on one hand, we're going to sites and things, and the Mac is crashing and my fans are spinning up, but yet we don't go. You're not going to Flash websites, and so therefore iOS is wonderful. This is just flat out BS rhetoric, and it is what it is for whatever people want to say. If it sucks for them, it's going to suck for them. If it's normal for me, and it worked well on my HTC Evo and for all my other colleagues and friends, then that's the way it is. Is it a bragging point for Android users to say, oh, look, we have Flash and this and that, and iOS doesn't? Well, Flash is going to continue to be prevalent and relevant in the Android market. They're still releasing another version of Flash, and the way Android is spread out over custom phones and this and that, I'm sure Flash is going to be around for quite a while within Android, within the browser space. That said, the way I look at it is this. Adobe is saying, well, Apple's not really on board with this, but we have Android, and we're doing all these customizations with BlackBerry and other developers, and it's getting to be very custom. Is it really beneficial to, if we're going to have to go all these custom routes, pursue this mobile version of Flash within the browser, right? And that's going to come to really what the crux of all of this is are we going to have central web content pushed to us in a browser, or are we going to have a richer amount of content via our applications that are domestic to our device, but pulling in just relevant content needed from the internet to it? And it itself, on the client side, handles all of the richness and things that we would normally expect in the browser, because this is what it's going to come down to. And you have Mozilla pundits out there saying, forget apps. Apps are going to become the way of CDs, and everything should go through the web, and HTML5 is the answer, this and that. I don't think this should be a zero-sum game, number one. And HTML5 we should continue to pursue technologies to help us augment and give us alternatives and consumer choices to proprietary means of providing rich content within a browser, whether it's Lightwave or JavaFX or Flash. Okay, I myself am not a big Flash user. I've said this over and over in my videos. I was a staunch antagonist to Flash. I would try to go out and prove with JavaScript, look, you can animate in this and that. Why are we going to Flash and this and that? Flash made its impression. There are now many aspects of Flash that we cannot duplicate in the amount of production time for costs that are just there for Flash. I mean, it's just not there. You can't get quite everything that Flash can bring to the web, and so hats off to Flash on things like that. Hats off to Silverlight and JavaFX for these are why we have these platforms, these devices, these types of development environments that, yes, are proprietary, because I have been fighting for standards, and yes, we've come a long way for specifications, but we can't even get along with this kinds of things. Browser X supports this. Oh, but wait a minute, this browser version, we got to wait another browser version, this and that. It's expensive. Now, there's the other arguments that say, well, we have all this one standard that's programmed to the standards, but isn't programming to the standards the least common denominator versus wanting a richer experience? Some pundits are going to argue, and very strong pundits on the Apple side of things, like the client, or the client run via the application is in charge. Others, like would probably be more pundits for Google and such, want a web, the portal being the browser, versus the portal being the application. And that's the real argument. And we're trying to figure out where can we put the richness that we want to deliver in the content. If we're going to go the app route, then we don't need to start supporting browser plugins. We can just simply create apps and do that route. But if we're not, and we're saying, well, our ideology is that our browser's a portal, then we're really going to focus on a browser plugin. And I believe, this is my take on it, I believe that Adobe's saying, because of all of these customizations, things that we've worked for browser plugin, and the way that hardware is advancing and software is advancing within the mobile arena, it's going to catch up. I mean, the power of mobile devices and software is starting to rival many of the... Well, actually, I don't even want to say rival. It does a lot of the stuff that we can do within browsing and emails and things like that, and is getting to be within power and energy, getting to the point to where we're like, well, Adobe's going to say, well, look, it's eventually going to catch up. Our desktop version, we're improving on it. It's going to become lighter, what have you. We can focus on that, and therefore the two worlds will eventually meet, where the mobile will eventually be the full desktop browser experience. So why are we doing this? It seems to be also that apps are becoming the more relevant means of handling the richness on a mobile device, and the content is then being driven and then fed into that rich client side. And that's the side that Adobe's taking. So I think that makes sense. I think it makes sense for saying, well, look, if it's going to be a browser plugin, mobile and hardware and software are eventually going to catch up. But for now, in the interim, we're still allowing our programmers to write Flash and then compile it out and send it to make an application. Now, does it participate on iOS? Not really. They have other means of making the cross-compiling to HTML5 CSS, and I think that's what they're doing in the interim to help satisfy some of the platforms. And it's kind of choosing their opportunity cost on what they want to do, but it's certainly not the end of Flash, or what we should say, the end of something proprietary, because in the end, isn't the argument is, let's use open standards. Okay, you're using open standard, but that is the least common denominator. That is the very thing that Jobs is trying to avoid. If you can get into richness of things, which inevitably goes to customization and being proprietary to your own operating system, or your own software, I should say, then it's going to be proprietary. You have other gaming platforms that do cross-compiling, and there's all kinds of suites out there that are building cross-compilers to run on Android and iOS. But quite frankly, Android is Java-based. iOS is, I mean, we're talking about for development. iOS is, of course, Objective-C. You can use other means too. I mean, I don't want to get into all the specifics. Let's just talk about the hardcore things. .NET for Windows Mobile, Java for RIM. WebOS was mainly HTML type technologies, but if you wanted to get into the PDKs, you could use C++. But anyway, it comes down to, well, I have my platform, I have the richness that I want to get, but I'm going to do it on the application. So that war can go on. Are we going to be driven by applications, or are we going to be driven, let me reword that, are we going to be driven where the portal is the application, or are we going to be driven where the portal is the browser? I'm leaning to the applications. When we go the other route, things get more to be the common denominator. So I'm careful to say, oh, HTML5, 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 which I did in the early days before it even became the specification. Essentially, HTML5 is a huge, large suite of technologies, with the W3 DOM level stuff that has quite frankly been around for a while, and certain browsers like IE had a huge amount of DOM over Firefox for quite a while. Then Firefox finally has their things and this and that. But we finally have a specification and definition for it. HTML5, for the large part, is not necessarily dubbed as a Flash replacement, but of course it's Canvas and it's WebGL and application services like that can augment Flash, but that in itself is just a recent addition and is sporadic within browsers from mostly in the desktops, because mobile browsers, a lot of it is WebKit, and then I think Google has their own, and then of course there's the video codecs that people are arguing about, but I'm not going to get into that. But people's main arguments, oh well, touch and this and that, and Flash is not touch. It can certainly be made. That, to me, that is so nonsensical. Why would you make Flash? Why would you make Flash saying, oh, it's not touch friendly? Well, you can make a site touch friendly with HTML5 and saying, well, I'm going to make a button bigger. You can do the same thing in Flash. That is the most absurd thing I've ever heard. Is that, well, Flash is not touch friendly? Okay, if you are going to an old site that is a Flash based site, yeah. Just like if I go to a website that has no mobile consciousness there, there hasn't a consciousness. There's no, what I mean by that is the developers haven't even considered developing a mobile version of their website. Good luck, It's one thing I hate on mobile is the majority of the websites I'm going to, still even mobile, is like this zoom in and out. It's still not as friendly, in my opinion, as it could be. I digress. My point is that Flash can definitely be programmed and moving around with object in your UI to make it touch friendly. It's just absurdity to me. So the deal of it is that Flash is not going away. I think Adobe is playing it smart and saying, gosh, we're going to be pursuing HTML5, Flash-based cross-compiled apps, and then also browser plugins for all of these manufacturer vendors, because it may just, yeah, you have Android, but then it's Android plus the vendor, which can be a very different combination in how they want to deal with it, right? Because they have their own UI layers and how they want to deal with switching it on and off and all this other stuff. And then, of course, RIM. And then I know WebOS is not, well, hopefully WebOS is sold, but it has its own means of handling Flash and Flash web content. And I'm not talking about just videos, okay? I know there's many aspects of Flash videos and Flash websites, but like I said, from all the things that I've demoed and witnessed, the sites behave fine, the Flash con is there, it's not like this stalling thing. I'm sure that it happens, and I believe people when they say they have problems and this and that, but for me and other observations I've made, it's not any different or any less consistent than anything else that I've had with other software that could, one day it's like running fine for 2 years and all of a sudden, bam, there's like a problem. What I'm getting at is that I have personally not witnessed any, there isn't anything that would tell me, oh, Flash is like this bad product that's killing my performance on anything. I just don't agree with it. I haven't seen it. I'm sure that it happens. But I haven't seen it. To me, like I said, it's been proven that Flash runs normally. It runs fine. It's there on mobile. End of story, essentially. That was really the argument. Because back when Jobs was talking about it, yes, I would agree that Flash was problematic. But let's not even get to when the iOS was first envisioned by Jobs, which the browser was the only portal. Oh, just make a web app. Just make a web app. All the developers would say to Jobs, we can't get all the richness we want. The compatibility is not quite there. You're not supporting everything. Oh, right. So let's allow native apps to be built within iOS. And here we go. And it's been this struggle back and forth. I've been part of the complaints that go out there and say, hey, Apple, we'd like to do this within iOS and get more and get more and get more and get more. So let's put things in perspective. Yeah, there was, there was cross-compiled apps of Flasher on there. They weren't any more buggy than any other complaints of applications that were on there. Quite frankly, what pissed me off mostly about Jobs lambasting Flash was the core root of it was a personal vendetta to me. Yes, you can say technical this, and this, but there was a lot of that that was hypocritical. And a lot, especially now that it was coming out, of how much personal bias affected decisions. Now that the biography is out, actually, I find myself disagreeing with most of the things that were rooted in personal decisions and agreeing with things that were more technical decisions. To me, I get it. We want to change technologies and not want to always have something locked into one proprietary source. But at the same time, I don't want to kill the choice of it. I want to spur competition. Whether we can have open standards or multiple proprietary software avenues to be able to provide the consumer with what they want, with rich content and a wish list of things for services that they want to do. Quite frankly, we can talk about, oh, it's a battery hog and all this. Look, the iPhone 4S, I haven't mentioned much of it because, quite frankly, it's not really going to be, it doesn't come down to a bug, okay? That's why I haven't really talked about it much. Consumer demand for what we want and what we're going to expect mobile devices are going to eat into battery power more and more and more because our expectations and our demands for what we want the software to do are rising faster than battery technology at a fair price can compete with. So, you are eventually going to get, Apple can either limit you or any other platform can limit you and say, well, gee, if we don't have a swappable battery or another battery type solution, then we really do have to stay on the confines of what we're going to consider to deal with the amount of battery power being used. But I guarantee you it's beginning to happen. We're pushing these devices more and more. That requires more and more energy. Now, the chips are also, however, on that exponential level, getting more and more power efficient. Right? So we have Moore's Law and all types of things happening basically on which front. But I would say that the user demand is very rapid right now. The mobile arena is extremely rapid. It's like the early days of desktops, or remember when Microsoft was just throwing everything at it. Oh, let's have Active Desktop. Let's do ActiveX here in the emails. Let's push this. I mean, they were just throwing everything on rapid amounts of features, and this is what's happening in mobile. And the more we demand of it, the more energy, like I said, it's going to use. So the whole battery thing to me has really been kind of nonsensical. I've had the Palm Pre, which is probably the worst use of battery power, which on WebOS is my favorite. It was my favorite operating system, and I would swap the battery quite simply. It wasn't that big of an inconvenience to me. It's not. I'm not sitting here worried about, oh my gosh, I'm not going to have battery power. My mindset is that there's reasons and rationale to things. If the phone doesn't do what I want because it's limited me for the sake of some battery and we got to keep it on for 10 hours, then I don't want the phone. It's got to do a function for me. Now I get it, which is predominantly most of what iOS is and the real what Jobs is after in saying post-desktop. It's not really post-desktop. It's regressing. It's basically saying, for all these years, we've had an over complexity of software that people maybe have used 20% of. So why are we continuing going to float something that the majority of people only use 20% of? Let's go backwards a bit and make software simpler. I get that. You know what? That's great for a lot of people because that's true. A lot of people don't even need the majority of the complexities that the operating systems use. And I'm sure there's study after study that show that. You know, it's, look, people want to browse, do this and that, and it's quite simple, end of story. Well, we can provide that on a simpler level and shed all the complexities and shed all X, Y, and Z services out and bam, and give you a simpler experience. To me, that's the real guts of what Jobs was getting at. I just didn't like how the word post-PC, we're not going to be post that. To me, it's satisfying the users that can finally get a computer at a simple level, make them happier. And that's what Windows 8 is about. And I have a video coming on Windows 8 because for my user, wow, you know, I got quite a few opinions on Windows 8. But I can see Windows 8 in trying to make a simpler aspect for the less complexity for users. So while have I gone in a massive digression of topics and things, that the bottom line, I'll just repeat it. Flash already basically proved itself. It's running on mobile. You can be on the side that says, oh, it sucks and is lagging, or you can be on the other millions of users that are using Flash on Android and say it won't. You know, they're okay, millions versus millions, whatever. You could. To me, it's just the point that it was done. From 2007, before Flash actually was releasing the versions, because I remember Flash was not even there, and I was even arguing. Adobe was like, Adobe, get off your butt and make your what you're talking about. I mean, let's go get the help us out. Get the Flash plugins working. They finally did. You know, and that's the same thing. The argument of, well, the browser is our portal or the app is our portal. I'm glad that Jobs finally changed from saying Safari was only means of delivering applications to or third-party applications to finally allowing Chrome, because that's opened up a whole new universe, and quite frankly, that's going to be the new war. It's not. We shouldn't frame this anymore between Flash or HTML5, because HTML5 is going to get brushed along as well. Because if applications win, HTML5, you're going to be doing it in Objective-C or C# or Java or what have you, because the native client app will be handling most of the richness. If you're going through a portal, then okay, or browser portal, then okay, we got to consider HTML5 and other proprietary plugins depending on the richness we want to deliver. So that's really a dilemma. What is going to win in that avenue will dictate essentially where Adobe wants to put its weight, or anybody wants to put its weight. Now, a developer's going to say, "Damn, I want to make money, and I don't want to program proprietary for each operating system." But yet, many are. Many are Android. Many are for the iPhone. Some for RIM. This and that, because maybe they're making enough money off of each platform that it pays for the development costs of it. Okay, that's one argument. Maybe not. Maybe it's like, well, gosh, I could get more profit, though, from that by saying, just come to my central location on the website. I'm going to have all the richness here for my application, and the browser becomes your portal. That's a dilemma between developers. I make majority of my money in programming on customization. That's my bias. I admit that I have it. Centrally servicing things, I'm very skeptical about, to me, because it's always about the least common denominator, and I'm more or less wanting to have proprietariness leads to customization and more efficiency in many aspects. Then you can argue efficiency in terms of, well, it's just one, but I'm talking about the experience that you can get. You don't have that bottom line. It's like what I always say, we're here, but we can be here. But that war is being waged, and that is the real context of it. Where that goes, I really can't predict. There's plenty of pundits saying apps are going the way of CDs. I'm not so sure about that. I'm not so sure about that. Thanks for watching.